all of the external services in relation to video game development, but very passionate about audio. That's where I started my career. And I also spent a couple of years on the board of an AI speech synthesis startup called Altered. So very interested in this topic.
Great, thank you very much, Andy. And Andrea, quickly, you are a fellow musician, so we are all in the audio field somehow. So go ahead.
Absolutely. So hello to everybody. It's great to be here today, and thank you, Jacques and Andy, to host me today. Yes, I'm Andrea Ballista. I'm a CEO of Voiseed. That is a startup that is basically working and investigating and doing research and products for AI voices, for game localization and more, and game production. So very passionate about this topic, of course. I'm based in Milano, and before to open Voiceseed in 2020, I've been starting my career in a game localization company, always in Milano. Had the pleasure to meet Andy and Jacques some time ago, and of course working a lot on game localization in multiple languages for translation and recording for games. And then, becoming a global audio director of another company before starting, let's say, Voiceed in 2020. So a lot of passion for voice, for music, for games, and we are ready to go and to roll for this live event.
Yes, and today we are going to specifically talk about audio for games, huh? Not we are not going to focus on anything else. So can we have the first slide, please? And that's a good industry overview. So when you see these numbers, we can talk 2 minutes about it. $187 billion market, that's big. And another really field that struck me is less than 50 games with audio localization in EU languages other than English. So if you want, guys, if you want to comment a little bit, because you are more in the game field than me, but when I see that, it reminds me the time where when I was working for a major company, Warner to not named it, it was always the problem of, are we dubbing or are we subtitling movies? And I remember when I started 25 years in Japan, Japan was dubbing like 5 movies a year. And I finished, they were doing 20 movies a year. So the audio localization was always something very expensive, but little by little it came. But we are not there yet. So Andy, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thanks, Jacques. I think it's probably pertinent for me to give a sort of top-level comment on the market and how that feeds into, I think, an important moment in time when the need to reduce costs, to speed up production, to look at a broader selection of markets is really important. I think a lot of people know the video games market has had phenomenal growth year on year for many, many years. And that got super hyperinflated over COVID, a very captive audience. But the last few years has been a very tumultuous few years for the video game industry. The growth has massively slowed down. I think it was even flat 23 onto 24. And at the same time, the cost of development has accelerated at a super fast rate. And I think it's generally accepted that this is now unsustainable. We've got a market that's really slowed down in terms of the opportunity and the number of the market for buying these titles, and you've got a massive acceleration over the years of the development costs. And that's two things that I think are very relevant to this discussion. The first is the big publishers and developers are looking at how do we capitalize on games we've already got? How do we actually get these into more markets? And then, and certainly sort of, revisions, going back in, porting across different platforms that they didn't in the past, and of course going into different territories and markets that they haven't in the past. And the second part of that is, how do we reduce? We have to reduce this accelerating cost of development, because it's just unsustainable, and we can't keep it going up at that same level. And I think that is very attuned to how that is impacting the discussion we're going to have today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm at the MIPCOM right now. That's why I'm in Cape Town, so in the MIP Africa, and we had a booth there, and we received a lot of people, uh, producers, so all African producers from Nigeria. As you know, Nigeria is the biggest producers with
Yeah.
India in the world of movies. So we do like between 2,500 and 3,000 movies a year, which is insane. And we are now realizing, okay, if we want to be outside of Nigeria or outside of any country, well, we need to localize.
Yes.
So how do we do that? Because they don't have any money, they don't have the tools, and so we have to start thinking. Andrea, you want to comment on any of this field that, by the way, thank you for preparing this slide because this is coming from you. So you know better. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, thank you, Jacques, Andy. So, as we are saying, we see that the market has been shrinking in the last couple of years, but it's still big. It's still big, and of course, is trying to redefine itself. Since we are focusing on audio, but what Andy was saying is that the costs are exploding, AI is basically entering the game space in multiple directions. Of course, we focus on audio. And what is the impact? The impact of the shrinking of the market is that the localization, game audio localization, has been seen more as an extra cost rather than an enabler for other markets. So,
Hmm.
and this is why it's important to try to speed up the process and keep the process live from all the perspectives. Since if we are talking about game localization, before to be localized, the game need to exist. The game need to exist, need to come to the surface, has to be accepted by the audience, and then can be deployed. And of course, we see that the cost of localization is really big. In my last year of experience in working, let's say, in the game localization, the request was huge, but at the end of the day, the languages that was really, say, operated through the studios and the actor were shrinking. Since the publisher need to take care about ROI and need to justify things, also because there's less IP and bigger. And this means that the budget for audio lock is concentrating on few IPs. And maybe these IPs are the one that are also, let's say, referred to movies. So the publisher need to do cross market, okay, on their IP, cross media. And of course, they are also trying to understand how to cope with this new scenario. But definitely, there's a lot of games produced, okay, but few of them has audio and less than that has audio localization. So we need to find something to change this direction that can be, and AI could, I think, at the end of the day, help the development and of course the localization of this.
So
Yeah,
that's
and
very
Jack,
interesting.
sorry, I
Yeah,
was
go
going to
ahead,
say
go ahead, Andy.
very, very relevant to the point you made about linear traditional media is that
Yeah,
the fastest growth that occurred is actually in the more emerging game markets. So that was the Middle East, Africa,
yeah,
Latin America. Okay, so that's got the fastest growth rates. But as Andrea said, it's yeah, if you're looking to localize into those markets, the actual player base is still relatively small. So that's an expensive percentage versus the sale opportunity. But it's also a necessity, and companies are going to have to get creative about how they do that, because that is where the fastest growth is. It may still be relatively small numbers, But if you really want to get traction in those markets, then how do a big piece of that is how do you effectively localize?
So my question is, I come from more the film industry than the game industry, and in film, TV, media, you have two business plan if you want. You have companies that are selling their content uh, before the dubbing, which was like a Warner Brother way of doing. And companies that are dubbing only after the sales. So for the game, and that's a question you guys can answer because I don't know exactly how it works. I think it's interesting for people to understand. The game is done by the producer. Do they know in advance where they want to localize, or are they just looking for deals? And when they know that they are going to sell X number of games in a given language, they start the localization. Because obviously at this point it's too late, they don't have any more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how does it work? Is it the same model for everybody, or do you have a general way of doing in games?
I mean, I can maybe start to elaborate more on Jacques' point. And I've been recently at Gamescom, and I think that the market is basically split in kind of three tiers. You have the global publishers with global brands and IP. They are keep on, let's say, producing IP, and it's difficult to produce a very new IP. So the number of new IP is going down, and there's a lot of, let's say, retention of the, let's say, of the audience of specific IP, and these IPs has a number, has a history of ROI, so they can forecast, and most of them can be decided while they are in development, since they are expecting sales somewhere. The second area, okay, is that the double A, okay, that are basically created by a developer publisher that sometimes develop and publish themselves on platforms without having a great distribution, okay, is very similar to, let's say, music, Jacques and Andy, okay. But
Yeah.
they basically have a good title. They can maybe plan to localize for text, and in case there's a really good audience coming over and they see they can also add voices, maybe they can plan just after. There's a third layer of developers that they don't have the budget to have voice at the really beginning. And there's no budget for the voice at the beginning, there's no budget for others. So that there's three layers, of course, are going up and down like a kind of elevator. So it's not just clearly segmented. So there's some elements going up and down, but these are, let's say, the three main areas. So
So
some of them for the beginning, some nothing, and in the middle ground, you can find some rebalancing on the way according to the feedback from the audience.
yeah, but it's very rare to see a game that has been planned without localization and suddenly people decide, okay, let's localize it because at this point they
Yeah,
need money, they need to reinvest money from their budget, and this is
yeah,
practically not existing, if I understand correctly.
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, and game is such a broad statement in terms of it covers so many different genres,
Sure.
platforms, style, and I think that again, the uh, the devil is in the detail in terms of what's being localized, what isn't being localized, and I think also where the impact of AI is going to um, be seen earlier, and where the impact of AI, and again, specifically around uh, audio and AI, and really as we're talking about speech
Yeah,
synthesis in some way or
yeah,
form here, um, where that will have a greater role to play potentially as that develops further. Because I think in that triple A, even sometimes now quad A these much smaller number of very high profile, very high budget titles. Of course, AI is being used in localization already in some respects, and of course that started with machine translation.
Sure,
And even there, that
sure.
has still required skilled human linguists and their input to make sure you're getting the correct tone and emotion and intention and all of those things. And I think it's generally accepted that synthetic voices, TTS voices in that sense, are not at the moment accepted in that level of title because the player base has an expectation of quality. But
Yeah,
as soon as you drop into these other different, very broad, very interesting markets, that opportunity absolutely exists, and I think especially in where there is no voice at the moment, where there certainly has been a decision that it will be subtitled but no audio. Um, uh, Mobile titles, of course, that's a huge area where it's a small percentage at the moment that do,
yeah,
and the new technology isn't just about cost and
yeah.
budget. It's actually about speed as well. And
Correct.
a lot of the smaller titles, and especially mobile titles, much faster, much more iterative, and going through a slightly more lengthy localization process is actually just not possible and not practical.
Yeah.
So it really is about the types of games and where the impact of AI in the audio look space is going to first appear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can see the parallel
Mm.
between the games and anything else with a picture. You have a video on YouTube, you have videos on a bunch of platforms, on Instagram. A lot are localized. How are they localized? We are going to talk about that because I see that you guys cannot wait to talk about AI. So let's talk about
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I do a lot of conferences on AI. And I used to say AI is a toolbox. Like Andy said, games, it's a little bit vague. So AI is a little bit vague too. So a toolbox, meaning that if you want to nail something, you take a hammer and not a screwdriver. If you want to screw something, you don't take the hammer, but you take the screwdriver, etc., etc. So it's adapting the tools for your need. So, what are the tools right now that exist on the market? How can we use it? And Andy was talking about voices. I will also, and Andrea is a specialist on that. I would also like to talk a little bit later on emotions on
Mm.
AI
Yeah.
because you have two components on a voice. You have the voice itself and how is the voice used. So me as a human, I'm going to tell you I'm in Cape Town and I'm very happy. So I can tell you I'm in Cape Town and I'm very happy. I can tell you I'm in Cape Town and I'm very happy. And I can tell you I'm in Cape Town and I'm very happy. I can tell you a lot of different ways.
Yes.
So, what AI is going to do for us? How are we going to use it? That's the next challenge. So
Yeah.
now we are going to talk about specific tools that we have. So Andrea, as he said at the very beginning, is a CEO of Voiseed, a
Yeah.
company specialized in text to speech, which is one specific tool. And Andrea, you can develop a little
Yeah.
bit. And we'll talk with Andy a little bit more about GL Voice and the GL Media System, which is a TransPerfect tool that is developed within TransPerfect in-house. So, Andrea, let's talk 2 minutes about what's your take on the use of AI in the games,
Yeah.
and let's talk about emotions because
Yeah.
in the games you have a lot of I mean, for me, the games is always a war scene and go and jump on it and kill the
Yeah,
guy. And
yeah,
so if the TTS is telling you kill the guy, it's not going to work
no,
very well.
doesn't
So
work.
what? So how did you develop Voiseed, and what was the concept behind it?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, I will start from the ending note before. So different games, different platforms, different layers,
Correct.
and definitely one common things. If you want to voice some games, you need to have emotion. Voice in games is usually very intense and need to,
Yeah.
let's say, be a component that is helping the players to have an immersive experience, that is a believable experience, okay? And this is preserving the spell of playing the game. What I can also see that where are the entry point in the market at this stage? Since in the scenario we were describing before, there are some games that has no voice at all, and they don't have the luxury, let me use this term, to use studio and actors. These are the ones that in a way feel the need to have voices. So let's say that one entry point in the game market that can start to be interesting are the game developers that need to feed the game with some voice. And then, since they have some voice at source, they can transfer the voice in loc. But if you don't have the voice at source, you probably have nothing, okay, to localize. So this is very important element, and this is coming from, let's say, a tour on the Gamescom floor. There's a lot of developers that didn't have the luxury to build a triple A, a double A, but they would love to have narrative games and a story to tell. So this is why we come to emotion. The experience of emotion is basically starting from 2020 when we started Voiceed, since there was already some TTS going on, the tacotron of Google, say, yeah, but there will be a way, something behind the hills. Let's start to explore. So we created a startup for this reason. We created, say, a data set, a patent, and we basically implemented this, say, TTS that is able to be conditioned with emotions and also able to detect and transfer emotion. And this before the zero shot cloning, okay? Or, of course, zero shot cloning is good, but you need to have a source voice and a source emotion. If you do not have it, okay, you need to basically, definitely, to start from text and then direct a voice model. But the fact is, how you can direct a voice model? We all know how to direct an actor. How can you tell a voice model, hey, you need to be happy to be in Cape Town?
Exactly.
That's the trick. So you need to define a language of emotion to talk with AI models so you can direct AI models and
So
bring them.
you mean a vocabulary of emotions, but the machine
Correct.
cannot. Yeah.
Correct. And we need to build that kind of transitioning. Since if you don't have a language, you are a musician, Jacques, also you, Andy. If you don't have the language of the pentagram, of the scoring, how you can describe things for a musician? You don't have the score. How you can insert additional sounds like concrete music into the scoring system? So it's a matter of language. So if you
Yeah.
don't have a language of emotion, and it is not exactly the language of expression, since emotion is how you feel, expression is how you deliver your emotion. So this
Mhm.
is a very interesting aspect that, of course, has been we have been focusing on, and definitely if we want to help for text to speech and speech to speech, these are two components that definitely need to be on the radar. Yeah,
So, Andy, you were saying a little bit earlier that obviously the current model is not sustainable. So,
yeah.
do you see AI as a saver? We'll talk after about hybrid models where we can, like in movies, we can mix and match both systems. So, what's your take on that, Andy?
Yeah, I think it's the big budget AAA games will have budgets. They will want to continue in the same kind of process, and absolutely rightly should be, because we're again a long way off where it could be with AI in terms of an actors and studio performance you can afford and you can budget for. But I think even in the AAA space, it is often very noticeable, especially large open world games, that certain areas
Yeah.
become very quiet, and the budget does not exist, can't continue increasing. I think that's an area where introducing a more sophisticated TTS, when it gets there, will have the ability to start to fill those worlds that they haven't been able to in the past. And ultimately, this is of everything that is relevant to the core initial source production trickles down into localization, right? So it is as relevant for the localized versions as it is for the AAA. I think what's really interesting in the emotional TTS is the currently unvoiced. And again, just staying on voice rather than AI and music and other areas we know are super interesting. I think the currently unvoiced has had a preference at times to subtitles because TTS hasn't been good enough. It's been distracting.
Yeah.
So it's been very valuable in a accessibility capacity, okay, but it's
Mhm.
not been valuable in a engagement, in a is this
Yeah.
actually bringing more to my experience, especially if there's characters. A well-written and subtitled character and just graphics is better than rubbish TTS. Okay, so I think that's the step change we're seeing now with emotional TTS. Is it is now adding to the experience of something that previously had no dialogue. So that's
Yeah.
definitely in that market.
That's a
Yeah.
good point. I just want to remind everybody, okay, TTS, or everybody knows is text to speech.
Yep.
So if you think about it, the difference in cost in regular dubbing comes mainly from the difference in the cost of the actors. Obviously, you pay actors in Germany more than you pay actors in, I don't know, in South Africa. I'm here right now, so which is much cheaper. And you know, Japan being the most expensive city for country for dubbing in the world, where Romania or South Africa are very cheap. Okay, so but this is the human factor. Now, if we think about it, TTS probably once, like Andrea was saying, once the model is done, generating TTS for one country or the other, the cost is the same normally.
Yeah.
After you create your models and after you spend a lot of time recording voices to create your models.
Yeah.
So obviously, that's to Andy's point, a very good incentive to localize in more languages, because suddenly I would not say all the languages are on the same kind of scale, but
Yeah.
the difference is going to be much lower. Is it correct? Am I right? I don't know.
Yeah, the market opportunity in the different countries is going to drive the traditional decision as to whether
Yeah.
you're going to uh, uh, invest in localized audio. And of course, it's actor, it's studio, it's engineer, it's editor,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. It's human. It's
all of those things.
human. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I go back to these are especially titles and languages that are currently silent in that respect, right?
Yes.
It's possibly got a source, original English, if English is the original, then subtitled, or it's just text anyway.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Jacques. It is there is there is a balance going on between how fast a market is emerging, the need to localize in that market, and the opportunity to sell in
Correct.
that market. And at some point, then that that investment, and if the market becomes more mature, then I guess the investment to dub in a traditional capacity with fantastic actors and the studio and the full process, that will be there.
Yeah,
And this is
yeah,
a bridge in some respects.
yeah,
So now let's talk 2 minutes about the hybrid concept. And nothing is black and white in this world. We all know that,
yeah.
obviously. And for music, it's the same. You have some music that are a mix of machines and musicians. So we do that in TV already. So in the game, I think, and maybe we can ask the question: Are we really ready right now to go full AI station? Do we really think that the tools are ready for, like Andrea said, big emotion, big expression, etc.? Or are we at the beginning of a journey where we know where to go, we know the direction, but we are not there yet
Yeah,
completely?
yeah,
So, Andrea, what's your take on that? And that's
yeah,
why the hybrid is probably a good solution, because
yeah,
it can work for some lines, not for others.
yeah. So, yeah, I think that it's the beginning of a journey, first of all, and the journey will be, let's say, pretty long, also because it need to impact on resistances that we can find in multiple directions. So, this the level of acceptance, okay, is coming in different areas. For the AAA super quality, definitely level of potential is very high. Technology is getting there, but not completely. For maybe smaller games, for developers coming from, say, some good title but not AAA expectation, that can definitely be a good one. Also because it's coming from the resistance in developing new skills, since who is using AI and which kind of AI. So
Yeah,
we see that AI is not a black box. You throw something in and it's perfectly out. No,
correct.
it's a give and take. So you need to do the take in the studio, like you're doing in the studio. So give me three takes. And then, so I like the beginning of the second take and I like the ending part of the third take. So you still need someone that using the tech layer is stimulating the tech properly to create the best possible output in a reasonable time. And this is a human effort. And this is why we need to train people to elaborate this. And
Yeah,
definitely, I think that hybrid could be full synthetic for small games, starting from no actor at all. Since
absolutely.
if you need to dub, you need to have a real actor. I do not expect, or me and now, that a real actor can dub a synthesized voice. This could be something that I've not seen yet. But maybe if you develop a game with a good emotion, maybe for another language, you can do
Correct.
the dubbing with human. But this is it's kind of absurd, okay? Since if you have produced it for one language, you can definitely develop for another one, okay? But definitely, yes, the actor's way to craft personalities is still unparalleled. And of course, the complexity of the major characters, not ancillary characters, is definitely something that you need to deliver to prepare the engagement to high standards. So I think that AI is cool, it's getting better, but there's a long way to go yet. Okay. But
So can we
hybrid is
say
the
that?
way.
Yeah, can we say that we are right now a little bit like a few years ago at the beginning of machine translation? Everybody was saying, wow, wow, machine translation is going to kill all the
Yeah,
translators. We are not going to have anybody doing translation. And
yeah,
we are in 2025 and we are still looking for translators. So we have a question, and Andy, you can take this one.
yeah.
Do you see a shift from subtitle to full dubbing our region as tech evolves? Because, like we just all agreed, we are not there yet completely.
Yeah, I think going forward dependent on the market size, the opportunity, the budget of the production as well. I think all of those things will drive that shift. As it becomes the ability to be able to deliver emotion in some way or form, that is going to be the driver. I don't believe it will ever take human traditional dubbing, as in completely remove that. I think there's too much that an actor brings in any performance, whether that's obviously a localized dub, which is more contained than the original source performance, but you know, Jacques, the dubbing actors are incredibly skilled actors who bring
Of
their
course.
own, unique read. So it has an important role to play, but and I think it will increase. But I think it comes into the transition between what's unvoiced, about to be voiced, too small to be voiced. I think that is
Yeah,
the area where this is going to
yeah,
have a huge and important impact going forward.
And we have another question. What are the new skills and the workflow for AI-driven environment? So I think it's a little bit like the machine translation. We are back in time. Exactly, the history repeats itself. You are going to have humans to verify what the machines are doing. So you generate a text-to-speech line. Great, you cannot just use it like that. So you are going to have
No.
humans specialized in, is it checking the intelligibility, checking the emotion, checking the expression. So you
yeah,
will still have human. So this is probably the skills that are going to be needed for the people who are going to work in a AI driven
yeah,
environment, understand how the machine thinks, or the machine doesn't really think, but how the machine delivers, and help with the human skills to to guide the machine in the direction we want. It will be a big help, but it will not be a replacement.
yeah,
We are in 2025. Let's have the same talk in 5 years, and we can resume where we are.
yeah,
So, guys, we are 43 minutes in the talk. I mean, we all know we can stay 5 hours talking about that.
yeah.
Uh, and Andy and Andrea. So, what do we see? Conclusion in the future. How do you see the market? How do you see more IP, less IP, more languages, less languages, more tools, less tool? So, Andy,
Yeah.
go ahead. Tell us what's going to happen the next 5 years, if you can.
Okay, well, I think in the hybrid, which I think is if you just sort of I'll take that one, maybe Andrea, and you can head into the unvoiced, because I think they're quite different in some respects.
Yeah,
In hybrid, I think it's going to be additive. So we're going to have our high profile acting performances, and synthetic voices are going to start to be introduced into those quiet areas to fill and be additive where the budget, even of the big games, just doesn't allow more.
yeah,
So that's a critical point. I think also in the hybrid, what's going to become very interesting is how AI voices present an opportunity for a unique game mechanic and gameplay. That's already people are playing with
That's a
that.
good
So
point.
so where the lines are not predetermined because the actual script is being generated by AI, and therefore you can't pre-record lines. Therefore, it can only be the TTS type of solution. And in
yeah,
that instance, that opens up lots of opportunities. I suspect also it will be, I'm going to say, non-human characters because it'll slightly mask some of the implications of TTS. So I think there's
Yeah.
going to be a breakout game of some way or form that has a non-human, very much AI-driven voice, AI generative character out on the market.
yeah.
So you are saying that the content can change to adapt to the new tools. This is a
Correct.
very
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
point. Andrea, do you want to take the last question? What languages are performing best for AI voices?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the one that has more data. So at the moment, English is
Obviously.
dominating the net, but
Yeah.
that's the fight. I would love to have Swahili soon, Jacques, since we are in South Africa, since minor languages and technologies to create good sounding voices and, let's say, emotionally delivered speech in what we call minor languages that are minor just from the fact that are less represented into the network, okay, that would be something good. So more languages AI can help to voice them voiced in multiple languages in products that do not have voice, okay, and that's for sure. And what Andy was saying, we have been talking about scripted content, but all the unscripted content that is AI generated through the game is evolving. Okay, this basically cannot be recorded in a studio since it's not existing. So LLM that are dominating the way they say in which the content can be generated through the game. You generate a string and then you voice a string and you voice the string according to the state of mind and emotional state using the TTS that is embedded into the game. These are the new
Yeah.
scenarios, and of course, the new skills for, say, AI speech editing for the existing scripted content. And then, of course, a new skill for elaborating scenarios and voice director of voice that is still not, let's say, text is not written. Like you're doing a music in the game that you do not know when the danger is coming from. You modify the
Correct.
scoring so you are
Correct.
acting the thrilling elements,
You
piling up
follow the
instruments,
action. Yeah.
dynamic. So
Yeah.
this will be the things, and of course, this intricate system driven by the gameplay environment can generate a stronger emotion when the danger is coming. So the gameplay, and of course, that will be food for thoughts, Andy and Jacques, for maybe another conversation,
For the
but
next
definitely that
episode.
will be next episode.
So
Yeah.
and thank you guys, that was really good. To conclude, I'm in Cape Town, I'm finishing the MIPCOM Africa, and I can tell you that I had demand from a bunch of producers. Can you do TTS in Zulu? Can you do TTX for Botswana? And I said,
Would
yes,
love
of
it.
course. The problem is we don't have voices. so,
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
so
yeah,
that's why, like Andrea said, yes, English is working well. The European languages are working a little bit better, but you have a lot of languages where we don't have enough data. So,
yeah.
to stay on the positive note, and I don't want people to misunderstand what we are saying. We all think that AI is the future, even if it's not ready to take over yet. It can help, especially the hybrid model, like Andy said, will be a big help. We can imagine that one or two actors are doing all the main characters, and all these little bits and pieces can be done by AI, and this will lower the cost, accelerate the timeline, which is the world where we are living right now, cheaper and faster. So, guys, it was a pleasure. Andy, thank you very much. Andrea, grazie mille. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup.
And talk to you the next time. Maybe we do another episode of AI in games in 1 year, and we'll see where we are. Maybe we do it
Absolutely.
from Cape Town because I like being here. The view behind me is fantastic.
Wonderful. Yes. Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you
Jacques.
very much,
Thank you, Andrea.
everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody. Thank you, Jacques and Randy, and all the super best. Enjoy. Hope you enjoy the show. Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank
Thanks
you.
all.
Bye bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye bye. Thank you.